I still remember the day like it was yesterday, the rain pounding that dusty gravel road in Eldridge, Iowa, the kind of downpour that soaks your soul and makes you think the heavens are weeping. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces when that Western Union boy handed me the telegram from the War Department. It read, "Your husband, Tommy, is missing in action, presumed dead lost in the Battle of Guadalcanal out in the Solomon Islands, fighting the Imperial Japanese Navy in World War II. I was only 22, our baby girl Sarah just 4 weeks old, swaddled tight in my arms, and the ground seemed to swallow me whole that moment, hooked me into a lifetime of sorrow, buried truths, and a grit I never knew lived in me. Come closer now, my dears, while I share how I clawed through the darkness, because if this old lady's learned anything in 83 years, it's that a broken heart isn't the finish line. It's the fire that forges you stronger. Gather your friends, share this if it stirs something deep, because stories like mine remind us we're all in this American journey together." Let me wind the clock back before the pain carved its lines on my face. I came into this world in 1942, smack in the middle of the war, years in our speck of a town, Eldridge, Iowa, where the corn grew taller than a man and the wind whispered secrets through the silos. My pa tilled the black soil from sunup to sundown, wrestling John Deere tractors through the mud, while ma ruled the kitchen with her lard crust pies and hymns sung over the washtub. We were poor as church mice, but rich in kinfolks. The ration books ruled everything, stamps for sugar at 5 points a pound, butter limited to half a pound weekly, even tires scarce as hen's teeth because of the war effort. But we patched our shoes and planted victory gardens, carrots, potatoes, and tomatoes bursting from the earth. I trudged 2 miles to school, my braids whipping in the breeze, lunch, a humble pail of corn mush, and pickled beets. The one-room schoolhouse buzzed with talk of Rosie the Riveter. And we'd salute the flag each morning, hearts swelling with pride for the Allies pushing back Hitler and Tojo. My first spark of love flickered at 16 during the 1958 Iowa State Fair. The Midway lights twinkling like stars falling to earth. The scent of funnel cakes and livestock thick in the air there. I locked eyes with Tommy, my Tommy Lanky, and strong jaw set like a movie star with a grin that chased shadows away and eyes the color of Iowa skies after rain. He was set to enlist in the Navy next week, bound for the Pacific Theater, but that night by the tilt-a-whirl, he carved T loves E into the bark of the ancient bur oak along the Cedar River, vowing he'd return to build our dream farm. We swayed to Glenn Miller's In the Mood on the dance floor, sawdust underfoot, and I hung on his every promise because in Heartland America during wartime, love was the anchor holding us steady against the tide of uncertainty. Those courtship days glowed like fireflies in July, even as Liberty ships steamed out from San Francisco, loaded with GIs. Tommy's letters from Great Lakes Naval Training Center crackled with humor about salty chiefs, barking orders and visions of white picket fences back home. I'd pour over them under the flicker of our Aladdin lamp, while my knit scarves for the USO drive. We wed in a hurry at St. John's Lutheran on July 4th, 1943. Him crisp in his blues, me in Ma's altered silk gown, shortened for the fabric drive. The town packed the pews with Jell-O salads and lemonade toasts. It was like the nation paused to bless us. Then the whistle of the troop train pierced the dawn. I waved from the platform, tears blurring the rails till the plume vanished over the hills, but I squared my shoulders, telling myself he'd sail home by VE Day. I punched the time clock at the John Deere plant in Davenport, 12-hour shifts riveting B-24 wing sections my palms. Listed raw ink from the blueprint staining my nails, but it dulled the dread nights. I hummed I'll Be Home for Christmas to the Cradle, prepped with tiny blankets, dreaming of toddlers chasing fireflies when the boys marched victorious. The war wrapped in 1945 with VJ Day horns blaring, confetti raining on Times Square, but my mail brought only echoes. First cousin Billy Kaya at Iwo Jima, then Uncle Hank in the Hurtgen Forest, and Tommy's silence stretched like the endless prairie. I badgered the Navy Department with queries, but hope frayed when the official notice arrived, presumed dead, no remains, just vanished in the Guadalcanal surf. I clutched newborn Sarah that stormy eve in the rocker, creaking like my resolve, murmuring daddy's an angel now, because a young war bride in corn country had no choice but to stitch her wounds and march on. Grief didn't halt the calendar, my loves, though. It clawed at my chest. I shuffled back to Pay and Ma's clapboard house, taking in mending for the feed store and harvesting corn, till my back bent like a sickle. Sarah bloomed, chubby-cheeked, her coos a balm on the raw edges, but shadows of secrets gathered like storm clouds. I unearthed Tommy's cedar chest post-departure, finding perfumed notes from a gal named Betty in Des Moines, playful affections, hinting at dances before my ring, jealousy twisted like barbed wire. Did he choose me true, or was I the safe harbor in chaos? I shoved the ache down Sarah, craved a steady ma, not a shattered one, and tongues wagged about widows chasing soldiers. So I plastered on smiles at potlucks and barn raisings, faking fortitude, while inside thunder rolled years blurred into the post-war boom Levittown suburbs, sprouting Fords gleaming on Route 66, the GI Bill sending vets to college I chased the dream waitressing at. Mabel's diner slinging hash browns and Joe to Route 40 truckers, but the Korean conflict ignited in 1950, MacArthur's Incheon landing filling papers with glory, then grief. I spotted that vacant stare in fresh widows over the counter, their sons off to Busan or Chosun Reservoir. It forged empathy in me, dishing extra pie or a listening ear, because in small-town USA pain bonds us like shared roots in tough soil. As Sarah titled The Real Battles Raged, darlings, we pinched pennies on my tips and Pa's Social Security when the 1957-58 recession slammed like a blizzard. Factories idled, unemployment spiking to 7.5% nationwide, Davenport plants furloughing welders left and right. I recall the January freeze of 1958, pipes bursting icicles like daggers. Sarah spiked a fever, pneumonia. The doc warned mercury thermometer at 104. I dosed her with aspirin broth from Campbell's cans, praying through blizzards that buried the roads. We forfeited the mortgage bungalow payments, lagging at $45 monthly to a drafty flat over Eldridge hardware walls, echoing every cough. The landlord's knocks a drumbeat of despair, but I schooled Sarah in spunk bedtime tales of Lewis and Clark or Lincoln log cabins, stressing grit-shaped souls like plow turns earth. She entered first-grade braids neat. I pulled night shifts at the cannery, but devastation doubled down. Pa collapsed. Good repair on the Alice Chalmers tractor Heart, seizing in the February snow. I discovered him tools, scattered flakes. Dusting his still form like a shroud, Ma withered instantly, curls graying as she stared vacant from her wingback. We laid him in Oakdale Cemetery beside kin. I vowed to Ma we'd prevail because Iowa grit means weathering the gale head high. Those hidden burdens, swell darlings, leaden as an anvil. One midnight with Sarah slumbering, I confessed to Ma over weak tea, spilling the Betty letters, the venom I'd swallowed. She clasped my calluses, eyes brimming, and murmured, "Child love's messy, but yours was pure." We wept, purging the poison, a burden eased, if not erased, to press on. I laundered for the bank's starched collars till knuckles bled, volunteered with the PTA cookie drives for polio funds. There at a 1960 auxiliary meet, I crossed paths with Frank, a reserved widower from DeWitt, his bride taken by tuberculosis, his boy in Korea's frozen chosen. We chatted post-agenda, his chuckle earthy, as turned soil, gradually companionship kindled to courtship. He wooed gentle bearing peaches from his orchard, or mending the porch swing sans fanfare. Sarah warmed, calling him Uncle Frank, mending fractures I thought eternal, but fate flung a fastball in 1965 as Vietnam escalated napalm strikes on Hanoi Tet. Offensive looming, our village youth dodging the draft lottery numbers pulled on TV. I shielded Sarah, cautioning against the chaos, but she blossomed defiant, attending Des Moines peace rallies, home with leaflets on Agent Orange. The footage of body bags chilled my marrow, yet Frank and I forged ahead, wedding at the county clerk. October 1966, Sarah maid of honor. We snagged a fixer-upper on Cedar Street backyard plot, yielding beans and rhubarb for the first time, peace-rooted, tentative, but true. Vietnam's shadow stretched longest, darlings, fraying the nation like hemp rope under strain. Frank's nephew Eddie drafted to the Mekong Delta, his female sporadic mud-soaked pleas for Hershey bars. I glued to Walter Cronkite broadcasts, body counts climbing the 1973 oil crisis, quadrupled gas to 55 cents, a gallon line snaking past the Texaco embargo bites from OPEC, our Chevy waiting hours for a fill-up, then the double-dip recession grip, 1973-75 inflation roaring at 11%, steel mills shuddering. Frank Pink slipped from the International Harvester line. I scrubbed at Genesis Hospital mop buckets, sloshing till dawn. We supped on Spam and Wonder Bread. Sarah off to University of Iowa, nursing on Pell Grants, her postcards brimming with Martin Luther King quotes buoying our spirits, but sorrow-struck sly Mom slipped away. April 1975, heart failure, her King James at Corinthians face serene as dawn, the wake modest pies and recollections of her war. Bond sales, I mourned fierce. Frank braced me, murmuring, she forged a warrior in you. I'll stand sentinel secret stirred. When Sarah unearthed the letters, attic dust motes dancing, she queried soft, had you pondered that other love? I bared it all. Grudges corrode, she embraced me fierce. You're my hero. And there I glimpsed my trials, tempering her steel for her battles ahead. Resilience bloomed in the late 70s, darlings. tenacious as thistle and cracked macadam America, mended post-Saigon with Jimmy Carter's cardigans and Star Wars flicks. Frank and I savored simplicities, weeding the Victory Garden heirloom beefsteak, swelling or tuning the zenith for Cubs games, groaning at their no-hitters. Sarah earned her RN pin, married Doc Ellis from Rock Island, birthing grandson Tommy, 1979, blue-eyed like his namesake. We motored I-80 visits, trunk packed with moss quilt. The interstates humming with Winnebagos chasing horizons. The 1980 recession nipped mild 2.5% dip, but 1982 roared back, 10.8 unemployment. Reaganomics trickling slow. Frank rehired at the plant torque wrenches on Fords. It funded a 1984 World's Fair jaunt to New Orleans, gawking at space shuttle mock-ups, but the 1987 Black Monday crashed Dow 508 points in a day, wiping nest eggs, our coffee can savings, and packed frugal habits holding, but it echoed Pa's dust. Bowl yarns of Hoovervilles and soup kitchens, I rallied kin for roast discoursing endurance. We'd brave fiercer gales emerged, unbowed Sarah's brood expanded, daughter Lily, 1982 son Jack, 1985 romping barefoot in the crabgrass, their laughter quilting my hollows. Frank and I silvered gracefully, his locks moon white, mine cotton, but devotion matured shared sighs over checkers, yarns spun endless. The pivot swung in the 90s, darlings, when Operation Desert Storm thundered 1991 scuds over Baghdad, CNN live from bunkers. Then a manila envelope arrived from ex-seaman Hargrove, Tommy's Guadalcanal mate. He'd endured Japanese captivity on New Georgia till 1944, repatriated, but mom on return. Wed Betty birthed kids too guilt-ridden to reclaim us, enclosed a creased snapshot, Tommy grinning Peleliu, bound my pulse hammered. What if surging tidal Frank sat silent as I sobbed, then uttered our tapestries woven no phantoms unravel it. I penned absolution, releasing the specter, a serenity dawning like prairie sunrise. The tech boom hummed modems, whining Bill Clinton, sacked Sarah's tots, glued to Nickelodeon, quizzing my lore. I chronicled in spiral notebooks heirlooms for their keeping resilience peaked when Frank's diagnosis dropped 2001 mesothelioma from asbestos gaskets. We battled Memorial Sloan Kettering infusions draining his vigor, but quips flew. To orderly still his final September breath, hospital air sharp with betadine. I gripped his palm, vowing reunion in the grief. I vowed vigor for the wee ones, pies, baked fable, spun fireside. Here in my twilight 80s, swaying on this wicker rocker porch creosote scent, the musings drift gentle darlings, luminous as Milky Way points. I've traversed America's odyssey from 1940s air raid drills to 1960s, sit-ins the 1970s, stagflation to 2008 crash. Echoes each chapter, scarring yet schooling. The fractures, the bereavements, the veiled pains, they didn't demolish. They diamonded me, imparting kin's not lineage alone. It's resolved to clasp hands amid tempests. I muse on Tommy adrift, perhaps graced and Frank, my haven eternal. Their legacies laced in my weave, a cozy coverlet to my progeny and theirs. If despair dims, recall grandma's creed, fortitude's not flawless. It's rising bruised yet bold, sauntering forth, chin lifted, spread this yarn to a soul adrift today. Because in voicing we mend, in mending we aspire. Relay it via your channel or whisper to a pal. Let it kindle as yours kindled me, blessings abound, dream. Vast, my dears,